Welcome back. This is the second video in the Web3 series, Why Web3 is Important to Business, and hopefully how Web3 can become a really exciting and really transformational tool in your life and in your own world. So with that, let's dig a little deeper into why Web3 matters and why you should care. So as we discussed in the last video, Web3 is a solution to some of the problems and challenges we've experienced in Web2. Now, let's be very clear about one thing. Web3 is not a cure-all. Web3 won't save your business. Web3 won't make you a famous artist. Web3 is not some magical solution that you can use to suddenly realize success you've never had before. However, Web3 might very well be the avenue that you use to discover everything you've ever been looking for. Now, how that's possible, how you can really leverage it, and how you're going to be able to take advantage of this technology are all things we're going to get into in this series, okay? But first things first, we really need to understand on a deeper level the profound transformation that Web3 is going to influence in our lives and in our businesses. It is going to fundamentally change the way that we exchange with each other, and it's already doing that. Now, please don't panic. There's no FOMO allowed here, okay? When I say that it's already happening, I mean that we've been playing with this technology for almost a decade. And for the most part, it's only been available to coders and developers and software experts, but it's now getting rolled out through dApps, decentralized applications that you can really start playing with. So please feel free to open up another window and start exploring Web3 dApps, Web3 ecosystems, Web3 businesses, and start seeing how other people are transforming their lives and livelihoods through Web3. I think there's 4 major reasons why Web3 is so revolutionary. And we're going to get into those. I'm going to share some specific examples with you, but I hope as you're listening to this, you're really thinking about how some of these barriers, how some of these structures and systems have actually prevented you from creating, from building, and from sharing. Because up until very recently, to a certain point, that has really been left to the big boys, right? And I know every single one of us has at some point felt like, well, I can't do that. It's not for me. I don't have the skills. I don't have the resources. And maybe I don't even have the time. The good thing about Web3 is it's now been explored, and there are so many learning opportunities. There's so much gamification in the sense that you can look up different dApps that will teach you how to use Web3 and reward you with coins, with airdrops, and with all sorts of things that if I'm using fancy verbiage that you don't understand, I totally get it. We're not really going to get into like the mechanics of some of these different ecosystems, but I encourage you to get into my Discord container, watch some of my YouTube videos. By doing that, you can break down some of the more complicated language and lingo that you might hear me say. So if I say something you don't know what it is, just write it down and we can discuss it offline, and you can learn about it. You can Google it. There's like a million different resources out there. I am by no means the only one talking about this, and I know you know that. However, I do think I bring a really unique angle based on my business experience, based on my work with artists, with solopreneurs, and with business owners, and based on my passion for creating accessibility in business and using technology to level the playing field. So one of the things we talked about in the last video was the stalking that can happen on Web2. And so you'd be familiar with this concept of pixels or cookies or this data tracking that was occurring. You've experienced it firsthand because you have a very curated feed. Whether you're on a search engine or you're on a social media platform, you're being shown what the algorithm thinks you like. And it thinks you like that based on your prior behavior and your history. Now, for some of us, that's fantastic. We love a curated experience. We love being told what to do. We love following the leader. Web2 is always going to be a great platform for that type of user. Now, if you don't want someone curating the information that you read or curating the products or services that you're exposed to, Web3 is going to be a place for you to explore because you're going to be in charge of your own data now. You're going to be the custodian of your behavior and the way that you engage with these different platforms. That in and of itself is a complete game changer. And what happened a couple of years ago is Apple released a new operating system for their phone, a new iOS. And they asked users if they'd be interested in opting out of data tracking. And almost 88% of Apple iPhone users said yes. Now, at the time, Apple was just over half of the different mobile phone consumers in the world. And so it's a huge market share. With the next release of their operating system, so that was about 2020, I think it was September 2020. By May 2021, their next operating system, you had to opt in for data tracking. And the internet imploded. I know digital creative agencies that were cash flowing $1 million a month that shuttered their doors in 6 months because all of that data tracking, all of those pixels, all of those cookies, even all of the email applications that were tracking if you opened, if you clicked through links, none of that was working anymore overnight. It changed the industry. And what happened was for small businesses, for creators, for service providers, we could suddenly compete with the big boys because none of the lookalike audiences, none of the email tracking systems were firing. And it was a completely level playing field. That's when I perked up because I work with a lot of smaller businesses that are trying to establish themselves on much bigger platforms, right? So this was a really, really exciting time. And that hasn't changed. Web3 allows you to connect directly to your customer, directly to your consumer, your buyer, your client. And this can happen in a variety of different ways, but the most popular way is an NFT. We'll get into that. But this disruption is occurring through 4 major platforms, or I should say 4 major avenues: decentralization, security, transparency, and then access. Now, these 4 values, these 4 paradigms really speak to my heart. I believe that everything should be accessible, transparent, secure, and decentralized. So let's talk a little bit about each one of those paradigms. Decentralization. I think conceptually we may have wrapped our heads around it, but let's take a minute to talk about it and why it's so important. When we talk about the man or capitalism or some of these social constructs, the banking industry, social media, what we're talking about are these centralized traffic controllers that essentially gatekeep everything going in and everything going out of their industry, of their business, of their ecosystem. And as a business owner, as an individual, as a human being, you are forced to engage with these gatekeepers. And you have no control over what happens once you enter their gate, right? And decentralization simply means that there are multiple nodes. There are multiple people, ecosystems, beings, computers, however you want to think about it. Nodes is kind of a good way. But there are these different connection points. And there are so many of them that there is no one gatekeeper any longer. So there is no one computer that is hosting all of the data. There is no one financial system that is hosting all of the money. It's spread out, and there's multiple computers or multiple nodes or multiple ecosystems that are managing the traffic control. So if one shuts down, it doesn't slow the engagement anywhere else. It also means that no one entity owns or controls anything that is flowing through these particular experiences and ecosystems, right? So it's a fundamental shift in the way that we engage. Up until now, if I wanted to talk to you, I needed to go to A, you need to meet me at A, we could exchange in A, but we weren't in control of what was happening there. Now, you can engage with a particular platform. You're in charge of everything that you're doing within that particular platform. And there doesn't have to be any intermediary between us. So that is a fundamental shift. And we're going to continue to see how this affects our world, our systems, the way that we exchange with each other, and ultimately the value and the benefits that we receive from that. So secondly is security. Obviously, if no one entity is in control, and if no one entity is holding on to all of the data, all of the behaviors, all of the exchanges that are occurring, that's going to be inherently more secure. It doesn't mean there's one point of attack or one point of fault any longer. It also means there's not one point of ownership. And so this becomes inherently more secure. And especially when you think about the ways that the data is exchanged on Web3, it's encrypted, it's encoded, it is wrapped up so many different times. And it uses ways of transferring information that become permanent. It can't be undone. It's like impossible with the level of encoding that they have. Some might argue with like quantum physics and quantum computers that might change, but at least as at right now and for the foreseeable future, it's a permanent way of engaging with each other that can't be undone. Now, the next onflow of that reality is the fact that it is completely transparent. So this is being done out in the open. Imagine being able to see every single bank transaction at your bank, who is transferring the money and how much. Imagine being able to see every single paycheck in your organization, or every single donation check and who it's coming from and to which politician it's going to, or every single transaction at your grocery store. It changes the way that we think and we engage. Suddenly we have this transparency of information that can become incredibly empowering and also equalizing. We can see how much somebody might be investing in a particular business or stock, and we can adjust our strategies accordingly. These are things that have not yet existed. And for some, they would say, I would never want someone to see the inner workings of my business or the inner investments that I'm making. And that's totally fine. You can keep things incredibly private because that custodial wallet that you're using to engage with on Web3 essentially masks you behind additional encryption and encoding, right? So you're a series of letters and numbers that is engaging. Now, you can make that as anonymous or transparent as you want. You now have that choice. Your business now has that choice. Your audience and your people and your communities all have that choice. So we're bringing everything back into how you want to engage in your world, in your transactions, and in your exchanges of value. It's a revolutionary way of being able to buy and sell and connect with each other. And so lastly is the access. And that is one of my favorite parts of Web3. Suddenly, with a mobile phone, a smartphone, you can have a business, you can be transacting with people from around the world, and you can do it without the use of a bank, without a currency detailing the value that you have. And you can actually do this without a lot of regulatory concern for the now. A lot of that's going to be changing very rapidly depending on when you're watching this. I know in Europe, we've already seen legislation go through in terms of regulation and how they're going to be treating cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens, which are how products may be represented for you in Web3. But for the now, you get to be completely in charge. Now, again, this isn't going to be some magic cure-all for everybody. Most people, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people are not going to be ready for the responsibility it takes to successfully manage your own money, your own transactions, and the exchange of value between each other. We've been handheld for the last couple hundred, if not 1,000 years, and there's always been someone else to blame. But if I'm transacting directly with you, if I'm buying a house, if I'm buying a car, if you are engaging with me for a particular service and something goes wrong in that, there's no one to turn to for help. That's between you and me. So that's going to be a completely new way of engaging with each other, right? And of course, there's going to be some risks and concerns and problems that happen, and there's going to be solutions for those as well. So what you're seeing a lot of in Web3 now are people iterating and improving upon the last 10 years of experience and saying, well, hey, what if this? Know Your Customer is a really popular solution that came from this completely anonymous inception with Web3. I don't want anybody to know who I am, how I'm engaging on the internet, what I'm buying, what I'm exchanging at what value. Completely anonymous way of engaging on the internet. We've not seen that up until then. But what we're realizing is that that comes with some challenges. There's criminal activity that could potentially be associated with that. There are ways that you can get scammed or hurt through that level of anonymity. So some platforms are saying, hey, if you're going to engage on our platform, we want to know who you are. We want KYC. We want to know our customer. And so they ask for similar levels of proof of identity that you might experience on Web 2. However, you own all of that data. It's not being shared. It's not being used without very explicit permissions. And as soon as you disengage from that platform, so does your data along with the wallet that you're holding all of that in. It's like using your driver's license to go into an event or a venue. You show it to the person who lets you in the door, and then you put it back in your wallet. They don't keep it. They don't have it. They probably don't remember it. So you might be asking, well, okay, sure, there's some revolutionary changes going on here. This is going to most likely evolve the existing financial systems and the ways of exchange that we're currently and have been existing in and exchanging with for, again, a couple hundred years. And you are correct. But how does this apply to me? So decentralization is transforming the way that organizations come together. And you can think of that as a club or a community you might want to participate in, something super casual, very social, or it can literally look like an organizational structure in your business. And I find this particularly fascinating. I am the CEO of a DAO, and what it does is it creates a decentralized autonomous organization. So we have over 3,000 members in our DAO, and we have a leadership community. I don't know most people's names. I don't know where they live. I don't know what they look like, but yet we are able to organize and engage in business so that we can all benefit. And we vote on the business that we want to engage in and the benefits that we're going to receive. It feels very even, egalitarian almost, in the sense that we all came together for a shared vision with shared values, and we co-create together. And through the use of smart contracts, automated applications, automated software, when we bring a decision, everything else happens without anyone having to do anything. And the actual structure and the mechanics of the organization have been organized through smart contracts so that we as people can be incredibly efficient and effective in the work that we are doing. And we're not having to waste a lot of time in this bureaucracy and in the politics that can happen in an organization. Now, that's just the fundamental mechanics of an organization. But when you think about a DAO, almost like a crowdfunding opportunity. So potentially you have an idea. Maybe you've come together with a group of people and you need funds, you need value in order to take this concept to the next level. You can do that through a DAO structure. And by making different Web3 technologies available, like a non-fungible token, an NFT, you can raise the actual value and funds that you need to then build. And you're doing this within this ecosystem that is completely self-contained and self-organized. And it's an incredibly empowering, very educational way of working with people. And it breaks down the barriers of geography. It breaks down the barrier of time zones. It breaks down the barrier of payment and salaries. And again, yes, of course, there's going to be different challenges and issues that come up as we start to organize like this. But for some people, this is going to be an amazing way of transacting and coming together. It could be the ideal business structure for you and potentially the thing you've been waiting for, because it hasn't made sense to incorporate. It hasn't made sense to put like a limited liability structure around what you're doing. And you've not really enjoyed the way that business is transacted thus far. You've been a part of a corporate situation. You don't want to organize in that same way. A DAO lets you make up all of the rules. Think about how this decentralized, distributed means of information, of engagement, and of value might affect you and what you're doing. Think about how you might like to participate in an organization. And I mean organization in the sense of a group of individuals organizing to achieve something together. Trustless, what does that mean for you? How do you want to engage, not just in your own behavior, but with the people that you're exchanging with online? Do you as a business owner want to be in charge of all of the data that your people have shared with you? I can tell you in the hundreds of businesses that I've worked with, most of them do not have a data policy. When a client or customer buyer stops engaging in their business, there's no destruction or protection of that data. Sometimes it just sits in a Google Drive or a cloud drive somewhere. If there's a data breach, there's no real protocol for how to handle that. Now, I know at corporate levels and at bigger business levels, there's all sorts of protocol and bureaucracy around this. But for a lot of small businesses, a lot of independent operators, and especially artists and creatives, they're not even thinking about this kind of stuff. So by engaging on a platform that automatically keeps you and your people safe, it reduces any of the risks that can be associated with exchanging and transacting on value. This is completely open and transparent. So not only can people be empowered by understanding how you work and who you work with and the value that you provide, you can learn from other people in your industries. You can now partner with other people and all receive the benefit of shared audience and shared ideas and shared value and leverage that immediately and transparently. We'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about the products and services and specific ways of exchange on Web3. Start really thinking about, what does it mean if I can instantly and openly exchange with people? What if, all of my product numbers are available? What if all of the pricing is available? What if I can sell a promise? What if I can sell an idea that isn't even baked yet? What if I'm just giving people access on a level they've never gotten before? What does that look like? Lastly, or almost lastly, the resiliency that can occur by engaging in these new platforms, by building this loyalty, as they like to say in tech, build in public. It gives you this confidence and this market research that has not yet been available before. And you're suddenly going to have direct access to people who want to give you something in exchange for what you do 24/7, 365 without anybody traffic controlling it. No more charges. I use a whole bunch of different payment processors. About 30% of my income can go out the door just because I need someone else to allow you, wherever you are, to transact with me using a credit card on a payment processor. Bye, money. And you've now just given away all of your data. I have no idea what your user experience is like on those platforms. I have no idea how secure your finances, your transactions are. That's going to reflect on me as the business owner, as the service provider, right? So now I get direct control over all of this, and I get to engage with you immediately. When you think about some of the global, political, and economic tidal waves we've had to swim through in the last few years, the resiliency that Web3 gives you, your business, and your economy is, we've just not seen it before. So again, I obviously think it's a really, really interesting and inspirational time to be in business. And I hope that this is inspiring you to think about all of the different ways you can make Web3 work for you. We're going to get into how to integrate Web3 next, and I look forward to seeing you there.